Hello everyone and welcome to our ConnectALL product demonstration webinar series. My name is Marites Cruz and I'll be your moderator for today together with my colleague Barat. In this session, I'm pleased to introduce you to Doug Boss, our integration expert and solutions architect, who will show you how integration between Atlassian's Jira and HP ALM works using ConnectALL. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the session, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will bring them up after the presentation. We will have time for Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'm handing it over now to Doug. Doug, over to you.
Thank you, Marites. Thank you for joining the series. This is a continuing webinar series we have to discuss different integrations with our ConnectALL Integration product. Not only to talk just about what the integration might look like, but also what are some of the reasons you might want to do that, and also what are some of the processes that it might affect once you have an integration in place. Of course, these days, the amount of information that's coming to all of us, it's a blessing, of course. Whenever you want to find anything, do you have a library of books in your office anymore? Probably not. You probably go to Google, you do some kind of searches, you find the information that you want. So that's great, but of course, there's information overload. Typical enterprise companies where you work, you probably have multiple application systems, multiple teams maybe distributed around the world. And for managers, all this information is coming in and you're trying to distill the information and understand what it all means. So of course, that's the curse side of the information. Too much information, too much data. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we can bridge those gaps of too much information. And also we're going to go into a ConnectALL demo. So a little bit about myself, as Marites was saying, I'm a systems and solution architect around the ConnectALL product. I've been doing integration for quite a while, so that's sort of my expertise that I like to do. I'm also a visionary in the product space, so I do a lot of research, talking to customers, understanding where the product space is going, and contributing to the introduction of those thoughts and ideas into the product itself. And I'm also a sailor, in case anybody cares. I love to sail, and maybe someday I can sail across an ocean. So about information, these days it's more self-service. Of course, Google is the best example of that. The information is out there, it's available. Maybe too much information. If you want to learn something new, I wanted to learn something new about sailing, some kind of new technology. YouTube is definitely the place to go to learn. It's amazing just the amount of information and how many people are now doing videos, upload them to YouTube to communicate, to collaborate about some new idea. Of course, websites, looking at white papers and blogs. We do a lot of blogs too around the technology and about the space that we're in. So of course, that's always a good resource of information. And of course, Google is picking up all that information and making it widely available. And of course, you know, you're driving to work, you're sitting in rush hour. Those podcasts are really nice, aren't they, to talk, to learn about some kind of new subject. Of course, the overload, there's so much information. You go to search in a particular topic, maybe in Google, and you're getting millions or billions of hits back. And how do you know what to believe? How do you know what to trust? Is this information good or is it bogus? All of the recent political stuff, I guess, is a good matter in that subject. But of course, the ever-changing world around us requires more and more information. As we study more, as we learn more, that even increases the amount of information that's available. From the perspective of administration, if there's too much information, if you're spending too much time going in this area and that area, it it's probably slowing you down some. So how can we do that? I mean, we have all this information. We want to be able to leverage that information to make decisions better and faster, not for it to slow us down. And then also, even with all this information, all this status going back and forth, we still spend a lot of time in meetings, probably too much in meetings, too much listening to voicemails. Wouldn't it be nice if it was easier to collaborate and get everybody on the same page when you're working on, for example, distributed projects? So absolutely, we could use some help when working in our companies to find ways that we can better communicate. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about how our solutions can help you do that with the ConnectALL product, how to understand the product, how to set it up, maintain it, how to scale it. All of that information we can help you with. But just as a thought, this book by Steve Krug is really interesting. You might want to take a look at that and get some ideas of how you can optimize the information coming into your desk every day. So from a ConnectALL perspective and sort of the space that we're in, we're talking to customers every day, and we're seeing that, you know, work is being done in lots of different places and lots of different applications. And maybe in distributed units or different business units, or maybe you just have teams that are using different tools and they're finding that those different tools are really the most effective way to do their job. But of course, they are losing information they may be getting from other parts of the team or other parts of the company. So you may be doing your quality assurance, your requirements management, defect tracking, maybe doing a lot in HP, Micro Focus ALM products. A lot of companies are now using Jira for managing their stories, managing their work when it comes to software development or other areas within the company. Rally, ServiceNow for service management, Bitbucket for, so there's lots of different tools in play here that we're all using. So wouldn't it be nice if you just had a robot that could decrease the amount of manual effort that you need to do, find the right information so you can derive value from that information, get more immediate feedback. Maybe as you're communicating with other people, do you have to walk down the hall, pick up the phone? You want a robot there to be able to help you do that more efficiently and more accurately. You want to reduce the amount of human error. You know, maybe you're using multiple systems and you're copy pasting data between those two systems. Well, that's a little prone to human error when you do that. So you need something in place to help you to do that more efficiently. And that's the purpose behind the ConnectALL Integration Platform. As you can see, it's a single application hub. It connects to your separate applications, and its job is to basically synchronize the data. But when you start to think about this, it's not just synchronizing the data, it's synchronizing the teams, synchronizing the processes. The nice thing about it is it's easy to install. You don't have to install anything in your existing products. You don't need to write any code to make it work. It's all point and click. If you're more comfortable with an on-premise solution, we offer that. If you're going more and more to the cloud, which we're seeing more the last few years, ConnectALL is available also in the cloud environment. So this is a good picture of ConnectALL and what it's about. It is a centralized integration engine. It uses a web browser so that you can define what data you want to synchronize between your applications, and I'll show you that in a minute. And we connect to about 40 different applications at that time. It's always growing, and sometimes we run into environments where customers have custom applications that they want to integrate. We also have a way of doing that with our ConnectALL integration engine. So of course, like we were saying, it's not only about synchronizing the data, but it's also the process flow. You're creating defects in HP by the testers. You want those tickets to be over in Jira for the developers to work on. Maybe you have a service desk, maybe with ServiceNow, Salesforce, and you want those support tickets to come into Jira so the engineers can work. So it's all about the flow information, the flow of process, and what we call distributed workflow management. So what I'm going to show you in a minute is about the integration between Quality Center ALM and Jira. Of course, as you know, ALM is a product that's been on the market for quite a while. It's used to track requirements. Maybe you're an analyst or creating requirements in ALM, and then they want to move them over to Jira as stories so that your development team can see those stories, or maybe it goes back and forth. Maybe your development team is in Jira and they're creating stories, and it's needs to be available. And so the requirement stories is one possible link in that integration. Of course, test to test is possible. And then of course, defects. So defects, as the testers are running their tests, they're creating defects over in ALM. And you probably want to review the bugs, triage them, and then you say, yeah, it is an engineering bug, and then synchronize that over into Jira for the engineers to fix the code, maybe collaborate, make it easy to collaborate between the applications to enable that communication between the teams. So those are sort of the different use cases. Different enterprises, different companies will use these products in different ways. Some customers may just want to log their defects in ALM and synchronize those defects over to Jira so the engineers can work on them and maybe synchronize the status or comments back and forth. That's one possible process flow that a company might want. They might be more advanced and maybe doing like requirements or test-driven development, and then they want to use those particular processes. So the tool is very flexible. It doesn't lock you into a particular approach. So let's look at some of those approaches now and what it looks like within the product. So like I said, ConnectALL is an integration platform. You download it in just a few minutes. You install it. It comes with everything you need. You won't have to install any other additional software other than a small database. We use a database to keep in track of the records that are getting synchronized between your applications. So MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, we support all of those. So typically you'll have those in a data center. If not, you can put it on the same machine as your ConnectALL application. It is a Java-based application, so it can run on Windows, Linux, Mac, or whatever platform you might have that's Java-based. Of course, with the installer for ConnectALL, we already include Java. We include all the components necessary to use the product. That includes MuleSoft. We run on top of the MuleSoft Enterprise Service Bus. That helps us with a lot of the drudgery work, the background work, queuing and HA, and helps us with that. And also the user interface is all leveraging a Tomcat. So all of those tools are all included in the installer. You don't have to install those separately. So once you do install it, your administrator would log into the application. Then they would start developing what we call application links. They would simply choose the two applications that they want to integrate, maybe like in our case, Jira and ALM. Give it some unique name, and then they start mapping the data between the applications they want to synchronize. These application links, you can create as many as you like. You can enable them, disable them as you would like. Maybe you have some for prod and some for development. You turn them on and off as you need. And here I have an example of one that I did previously between Jira and ALM. Of course, you put in the URLs of the two applications, put in a user ID, not an admin, but like a project lead that can grab all the project names and the field names between the applications. Also decide how you want to handle conflicts in a bi-directional integration. Maybe the same field, the same record in two systems change at the same time. If that should happen, we handle that one of three ways automatically. Master of record, choose one system or the other to be the master. or whoever made the change first, or whoever made the change last. So once you select how you want to handle the conflicts, then you can go on to the entities that you want to map. Of course, on the Jira side, you can select any of the projects that you have in your Jira server and any of the issue types that you have. On the HP side, in Quality Center, of course, projects, the different issue types that you want to synchronize, and of course also the domains that ALM would also have. You can choose how often you want the data to be synced. Most of our customers use a poll approach. In other words, we'll send a query to the application, tell us what data has changed within the last minute or 5 minutes or the last hour, however you want to poll it. Or if you want, you could trigger in your application and push the data to ConnectALL. You can use that approach also. We have some advanced properties like attachments. We can sync an entire attachment or just a URL. You can choose the particular user account you want to use to synchronize the data. It doesn't need to be an admin, just anyone with read and write permissions. And we also have a poll query, which is like a filter or a subselect. Like I was saying earlier, maybe you want to create your defects in Quality Center, and then once you've created those, maybe you want to review them, triage them, and then send them over to Jira. So you might do a poll query, something like a status is triage, for example. That would be an example of a poll filter. So like I said, we have push and pull. You can also create control the bi-directional flow. Maybe you want the data to go only in one direction, you can do that. Maybe you only want to create tickets and not update, you can do that. We also have several linking strategies and a full range of notifications. If one of your systems like Jira is down for an upgrade, we can send out notifications that the synchronization is not happening. If for some reason the synchronization fails, we can also send out notifications for that. So your last step is to choose the fields that you want to synchronize. You simply choose the field on the two sides you want to sync, choose what direction you want the data to go, hit the plus, and that'll add that field to the list of pair of fields being synchronized between the applications. You can choose, of course, a direction at the field level that you want the data to go. You can also change the conflict management strategy down at the field level. So maybe for this field, we want the other system to be the master. We can do that. We can also change the data types. Like in Jira, you have some fields that are wiki formatted, HTML formatted. Maybe they're stories or epic site. We can select any of those different data types that we'd like. And then last of all, we have value mapping. So maybe you have different values, say priority or states you want to map between the applications. Maybe the user IDs are different between the applications. You can map those. We also have constants. So if you want to set the same value all the time when it comes over, you can set those constant values. So ideas of the mapping. So once you save this, we start synchronizing the data in the background. To help you understand what's going on in the background, we have a couple of things. One is we have a dashboard. So in the dashboard, we can see what records are passing, what records are failing. We can also show you the error log down at the record level. So this particular record didn't sync. We could look at what the error was. Maybe I forgot to map a required field, for example. So I could fix the mapping. Click here, it'll resync that one record to make sure it's now working correctly. We also have histograms, so you can see how much data is getting synchronized between the different application servers. You can also see all of your different application links, how often they're scheduled. Clicking on the green link, you can reschedule it to a different time. Maybe you want it only 3 minutes or every 5 minutes, you can schedule that. Maybe you want to sync it right now. You can click the blue button on sync now and it'll sync that right away. Also, in addition to the dashboard, we also have some alarms that I was talking about. And the alarms, like I was saying, on a synchronization failure, on a field conflict, on an application outage, by default, these go to your administrator. If you would like, you could send them to project leads. In fact, your project leads can manage their own application links, defining what data should be synchronized into their project. To implement that, you would add them as a new user in ConnectALL, put them in a security group so they can manage only their own project. And when they log in, we would store their password encrypted in the ConnectALL database, or if you'd like, you could set up a ConnectALL to validate that password through your LDAP or Active Directory server. Of course, you can also set up what email server you want to use to send out the notifications, what database you're using in the background to store the record links, and then, like I was saying, also what Mule server you use in the background as the synchronization engine. Just from the perspective of how you use the product, how impactful is it on your users? Really, your users don't even see the difference. They'll be, say, over in Jira, they're creating bugs or stories or any of the records over there, and the data is automatically synchronizing over to Quality Center. So it sort of runs in the background. Your users don't need to be retrained at all. Of course, maybe now they're putting in a comment. So maybe I'll put in a comment on this particular ticket and I'll say, I need an error log to debug the issue, for example. That might be a possible comment or collaboration between. So when I save this, it'll sync within a minute or so over to the other application. Then the developer, the tester would see that. They could send the error log back. And so it would give that means of collaboration automatically instead of waiting for emails or sending big files back and forth. So that's a nice feature of integration platform like ConnectALL to be able to synchronize the data. Oh, sorry about that. So last of all, we were talking about requirements. So sometimes you might have a requirement if you have a requirements-driven process. So maybe your analyst or an ALM, they're creating requirements. You want to sync them over to Jira so that your Jira developers can see what those requirements are, maybe review them, comment on them, help them work the workflow management, which we can also map between the application. Maybe the statuses of the different applications are not the same between the two systems. In fact, let me show you. I think I might have an example of that. So I look at this particular application link. This is between Jira and ALM. And here we're synchronizing stories to requirements in ALM. And we have different fields that we're mapping. Well, priority was an example that I had mapped here. So you can see the values for priority are different in the two systems. We can map them one-to-one, one-to-many, any direction that we want. And you could do statuses, your workflow statuses in an equivalent way. Also, another thing that you can do is linking. So it's very common to have a hierarchy of records over in ALM, in task or in requirements. And you can also duplicate that same hierarchy over into Jira, into using issue links. So we can create issue links of different types. This is relates, but you call it parents or children or defects, whatever issue links you want to use. And you can more easily visualize that hierarchy of requirements that typically you would have over in Jira, in ALM, something like this, and you'll be able to navigate between those within Jira issue links. So that's sort of a general overview and some of the processes that you might integrate into the application. If you would like, we would be glad to schedule a demo, have a subsequent demo with you. We can talk more about your specific requirements or into the details. This was sort of a broad overview, but we could really get more into the details with the demos. So that was sort of the overview of the ALM to Jira integration. I'd like to open any questions that we might have at this time.
Thank you very much, Doug. We have a few minutes for Q&A, and I already have a few questions here from the audience. The first question is, you mentioned about the cloud deployment of ConnectALL. Does it support on-premise as well?
That's correct. So we have some customers that maybe for security reasons, they have a firewall around their network. All their applications are in-house. So of course, in that case, they would use the on-premise of ConnectALL, install it within their network. But more and more customers are using a cloud version of Jira, a cloud version of ServiceNow. In that case, if they want, we could set them up as a login on our cloud version of ConnectALL to easily synchronize. And of course, for the customer, that eliminates the need for management for upgrades. We take care of that all automatically.
Thank you, Doug. Another question here. What if I have a combination of cloud, Jira Cloud and HP ALM on-premise? Does it really matter?
This is what we call a hybrid integration, and that's also becoming more and more common as companies are going to the cloud. And to actually implement that, I would need to talk to your network engineers and find out what your firewall looks like. Surely you've already opened up a hole in your firewall to talk to your cloud applications. But do you want to open up the firewall going vice versa in another direction? If the answer is no, which is probably is no, you would still install ConnectALL on-premise. It could talk to your on-premise applications, and it could use that same firewall hole to go out to your cloud applications.
We have another question here. What are the fees of ConnectALL?
So this, the way that we license the application is by the number of applications that you want to connect through the ConnectALL. So say you wanted, maybe you had 2 ALM servers and you had 3 different Jira servers. So you would buy a license, or what we call an adapter. That's a way we call our licenses. Maybe endpoints would be a better way of describing that. So you would buy a license. So in that case, you would buy 2 ALM endpoints and you would buy 3 Jira endpoints. And there's also the core charge for like the synchronization engine. So you can reach out to our sales department and they would be glad to help you understand better the licensing instruction.
Another question regarding the installation. Do you require installation or do I need to install something on my Jira server or HP ALM server?
Yeah, that's one of the really nice things about ConnectALL is you don't need to install anything on your application servers like Jira ALM. All you need to do is install ConnectALL in some centralized location that can communicate with those applications. Sort of in the old days, we were developing point-to-point solutions. They were actually add-ons that ran within applications, and that was always difficult. You always had to prove that plugins, these add-ons, when you did an upgrade, you had to be concerned about those add-ons being versioned properly. With ConnectALL, you don't need to worry about that. We don't use add-ons. We use, every case we can, we use a REST API. In other words, a communication protocol that allows us to synchronize the data without embedding add-ons to your application.
All right, we have one last question here. So when I use ConnectALL, do I need to change anything on my process flow?
That's a very interesting question, and it can get into a rather lengthy conversation, which I'd be glad to have with you. And the question really is, does it need to change your process flow? Or maybe the other side of that coin is, should it change the process flow? In other words, how well do your development teams and your testing teams currently work together? Do they understand each other's processes? Do those processes mesh well? or maybe they could mesh better if you had an integration tool. And those are the kinds of concepts we would talk to you, and we have consulting services that could help you go through those issues if you need.
All right. Okay, there's another question here. Okay, it's a feedback actually from one of our attendees. Seems like a great product. Thank you so much. We are very interested. Thanks a lot for that feedback. And again, I would like to thank everyone who participated in this session. We will have another one next week, and that is on ServiceNow to HP ALM integration. So if you're interested, please do come and join us. Again, thank you so much. And thanks a lot, Dog and Bharat. Yeah, have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.